Hey everybody, welcome back. Once again, we have another exciting IncrediChat tonight from our show, our Comic-Con Incredicon. So welcome once again. I'm Mike, your fun host here for the IncrediChat. We got a lot of great stuff coming up, and tonight we have a really good show on board tonight. We're very fortunate. I'm getting feedback sound. My fault. Yeah, we have a great guest tonight. If you like special effects, if you like makeup, if you like the SYFY channel, you're going to love our guest tonight. Let's welcome to IncrediChat, Tyler Green.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me.
Welcome, Tyler. So, yes, look at all this great stuff behind us.
Got some monsters behind me, look out.
So tell us, for the folks watching, tell us a little bit about yourself. What is it that you do, and how did you get started with it?
Well, I'm a special makeup effects artist and inventor, so I basically make monsters for film, television, and theater. Obviously, things are a little bit different with this pandemic. So at the moment, I'm teaching, and I'm actually going to be moving my studio online. But I've gotten into special effects makeup since I was a little kid, and I'm sure, like your son knows, working with monsters, it's kind of it's a fun experience as well. But at the same time, there's a lot of learning to do. And I, as a young kid, was so fascinated by movies with monsters in it, and that was kind of my starting point, and I've stuck with it all these years. So
you said you watched a lot of monster movies. Was there one particular movie or series of movies that really inspired you into this world of being a makeup artist?
Well, I mean, I'm sure Leslie, who's watching, I'm sure will respect this, but again, Sesame Street, for sure, or The Labyrinth, Jim Henson. Jim Henson for me was a huge inspiration. He created such iconic characters like the Skeksis, in The Dark Crystal. I mean, if those of you who don't know, you don't watch these movies. These movies were so life-changing for me in both character design and also makeup and all of that. And it just resonated so well with me. So Jim Henson at a young age for me was such a huge inspiration. Even going into some of the horror movies like American Werewolf in London. The werewolf transformation by Rick Baker, again, just stuck with me. It was such an impactful thing for its time back in the 80s, you know what I mean? So still, though, everything of those films hold up, so those are huge inspirational films to me.
No, absolutely. And like you mentioned, the American Werewolf in London, like what an iconic film. And like you said,
right?
that transformation, I mean, that movie was made in like the late 70s?
I think it was late 70s, maybe 79, 80.
Yeah,
sure.
Well, right on the borderline. But I know as a kid, I saw it, and I mean, as an adult now, we can appreciate it. But as a kid, it was kind of cool, but kind of like scary too.
It was.
Because I think as much as special effects have improved over the years,
right.
There's still something to be said about the classic makeup that were done for a lot of these like horror and sci-fi films and fantasy films over the years.
Right.
So you started. You were influenced by Jim Henson. You were influenced by a lot of these films. When you went to school, like what was your education like to get ready for this kind of career?
Well, even before I enrolled in the Tom Savini School of Special Makeup Effects around in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I've always kind of had a knack for creating things out of nothing. I mean, I had no concept at that age when I was young of like latex materials or mold making and casting. So I would make things out of like tape and tinfoil because that's all I knew how to use at the time. And I didn't even know that there were schools or anything back then. I mean, we're talking 90s. We were lucky if we had, some behind the scenes in a magazine or in a VHS tape. You know what I mean? So, but I ended up seeing a ad in Fangoria magazine on the back of it, and it was for this school. And I looked at it when I was in 8th grade. I went with my family to visit the school in 9th grade. And I knew that's where I wanted to go. So my whole high school was geared up to go to this school. And I learned so much there. The school is doing amazing. So many people have gone there 3 students who I have had are either enrolled or graduated already. So, you know, the school for me was such a huge launching pad, you know, I should say. And I really learned a lot about the entire spectrum of special effects. I mean, things are updating, you know, every year. There's new technology,
Absolutely.
new materials being introduced, like silicone appliances. Those are what's being used now in the industry. Back in, you know, 2004, 2005, they were not really there yet. So
Yeah.
I'm very jealous of the new students who get to go to the school and have to experiment with these awesome new products, because I'm still learning even today about these materials. So there's always room for improving and, you know, educating yourself in this industry. And there's so much room for growth and expansion. So
yeah. And you know, it's funny. Growing up, you mentioned Fangoria magazine.
yeah,
Like, you know, and again, certainly as a kid, like, you know, and I think I have this conversation now. And we were talking about my son earlier, who's 7. And I've had this conversation before. So many of these like horror creatures that like we grew up with, like, you know, Freddy Krueger and Michael Myers and Jason, like really, they're cartoon characters now. You know,
oh, and that's funny. It's so strange when you think about it. Like when you see Hellraiser or Jason, it's like, when you look for young kids looking at, I mean, they think, you know, the new It was like terrifying, and I'm like,
but he's like, it's funny you mentioned that. Like, I even have here sitting next to me, like, what the great toy line, NECA, right? They did this line called Toonie Terrors, and it's like cartoon versions of their characters. There's Pennywise, but yeah, I mean, they're cartoon characters now. Like there's certainly not for all the monsters, but like there's like a level of celebrity for them now, you know?
Right.
And so, like, you mentioned Fangoria magazine, and I guess it's probably the same when you were growing up. Like, I remember I would go to the convenience store or whatever, or the bookstore where they had these books, and like I would look at like Starlog and Comic Scene, because they were all like in that same genre.
Right.
And there's Fangoria, and it was like, am I allowed to look at this book? Because even going into a video store, it was like, you know, the world of horror was like so weird as opposed to
it was strange. It was almost like you felt like, you know, walking into like a restricted section or something, you know. But you watch horror movies now, some of them are just so weird, or you just don't understand what the character design was with some of these creatures.
Yeah.
But there were some, again, like Freddy Krueger. I mean, it's a horror movie, but it's kind of comical as well.
Oh,
you know, really,
absolutely.
You know, but that character as a makeup is kind of it's amazing, but it's also, like you said, it has this cartoonish quality to it for some weird reason, because it's like, how does that work? If that guy really got burnt, he wouldn't look like that. You know what I mean? So there's all these things that you realize over the years, and you know, not that it ruins anything. It just makes you appreciate, what you used to watch. So.
Yeah. But now let me ask you, as a makeup artist, right? So we'll take like a character like Freddy, right? Who's got like that, I guess, what we all joke, pizza face, like that melted cheese looking face to him. Like, do you think in the sense of like makeup now? Because I mean, at that point in time, I mean, I guess they were just looking for something grotesque and
right.
But do you think at this point now, like, there really is that pushing the barriers? Like, you're looking at something like Walking Dead, and I mean, the people that work on Walking Dead, like, like it's hard to believe sometimes that there's even a person under that makeup, because they have like the jaws, and like it's crazy. Like, what do you
There's a lot more technicality and narrative now with some of these extreme looks, like The Walking Dead. They do such an amazing job, and what's really great about that show is they're doing it right. They are blending the CG technology with practical effects and makeup effects. So they are doing it correctly. And back in the 80s, they didn't have that. So they would rely on, and a lot of people didn't know any different, what they're looking at. So when you see things like Freddy Krueger or, the Predator, it's like, oh my gosh, like that looks real. You tell me differently, So it's funny now when you look back at that. And we've seen even new versions of Freddy Krueger, even that remake.
Yeah,
it's interesting because it was like, it's not the same, but the burn makeup in that particular makeup specifically was actually more accurate and more realistic to what had happened to him. But it loses that, like you said, that cartoonish character quality to it that we all recognize. That's iconic. And we lose that, I think, as people who have appreciated the original sometimes, you know, as a makeup artist myself. So I'm just like, oh, even though that is like the advanced version of that, it's still like, it's not the same, you know?
It's a different thing. I just want to take a minute and say hi to some of the people who are tuning in, and you can see some comments here. We have Amity Green Wolf. She says,
"Oh, that's my aunt Amity. Hello."
We have our good friend Leslie Carrera Rudolph.
Hey,
hi, Tyler. And then over on the other thing, we have Andrew McKnight's watching us. James McKay Jr. John Lumia. Hey there, John. John's a buddy of mine here.
Awesome. Hey.
So yeah, I mean, going back to that, yeah, there was definitely a real, like you said, and I remember seeing the documentaries with that new Freddy Krueger movie. Like they did look at burn victims and see how it was, and it was missing something because that comedy wasn't there of what we grew up with Freddy, which was interesting. Ghostwriter Taylor says hi as well. Hey. So tell us a little bit about your process, right? Well, and how that led to you getting on to the sci-fi show Face Off.
Well, again, I was a huge fan of the show since season 1, and Gage Munster was one of the contestants for me who I just like connected with. You know, he kind of had this amazing attitude towards the whole process, and I was a big fan of his and of a fan of the show since season 1. Mm-hmm. I just didn't know that anybody could audition for it. And I was recommended to audition, and I didn't know how that worked. I mean, this was 2011.
Okay.
You know? So it was kind of still the early stages of submitting videos like this and doing it on YouTube. But I did it, and I was grabbed by the casting agency. And they said, okay, can you, you know, and we went through the process over the phone and video chat, things like that. And they flew me out to LA for 4 days. And this was for season 4 I auditioned for. Okay. I actually auditioned in season 3. And when you're selected as your top 20, their top 20, they fly you out. And you meet with the producers. You meet with the casting agency, and scarily enough, you meet with the president of the SYFY network.
Oh, wow.
And they put you through a makeup test. You have to do a makeup application on yourself. You go out in front of all of them and you explain why you know what this is, why you should be a contestant, all of that. And then you went through this crazy psychological evaluation to make sure that you were, you know, mentally able to deal with the stress that they're going to put you through. You know, and you know, I auditioned. I didn't make it for season 4. So I flew back home, and they're just like, you know, try out for next season. And I did. And they chose me for season 5 and then switched me last minute, believe it or not, to season 6. So I flew out to LA twice within 7 months.
Okay.
So, and I had to do makeup all over again. But they really liked and appreciated, you know, my personality, but most importantly, my time management. And I think, you know, not now that I realize that time management is a skill, you know, and I used that heavily to my advantage when I was on the show competing. Yeah. You know, and this is one of those things where it's either you have to just use the clock like I did as kind of like a game, or you fail. And I kind of looked at that clock and I budgeted my time. And I really feel that gave me such an advantage because I didn't let that bother me. So I strategically went about each challenge in a way where I could, okay, what can I do to cut back time, you know, not sacrificing quality, of course, but trying to do things as fast as I can to get what I need to get done, you know? So all that thinking, you know, in one episode, it was a lot, you know? I loved it. I was crazy enough to go on it again. For me, I would go back if they did it again. You know, it was fun. The only thing that was a little crazy is the first season that I was on, they aired it in 2014, but we flew there to film in the end of July in 2013. So it was a quick turnaround when they filmed that. And, you know, the All-Star season wasn't. We had to wait a year. We filmed it a year before it went out. Mm-hmm. So that was a big secret to keep, you know what I mean? So, and it's nuts. So we can talk about it all day. I got all the secrets, you know, but.
Well, no, that's interesting. I just want to throw up here. Just a few more people have come on. Ghostwriter Taylor, big fan of yours, he said. Colin says, hey guys. Leslie, and we all love Leslie.
We do love Leslie.
Leslie says, you were my favorite, and I like how positive the show was and supportive. Plus, you were super crafty and creative, and you had such positive energy.
Yeah, I tried as much. Thank you, Leslie, of course. And so I can say the same with her. She's an amazing icon for all of us, you know.
I was going to say birds of a feather, right?
Yeah.
The positive.
But, you know, that was the hardest thing. It was, you know, making sure that show really put a lot of pressure on you. You know, as an artist, you know, you get exhausted. But, I mean, this show is like, holy moly. Like, you had these time crunches. You know, lived and breathed, you know, special effects. I mean, what people don't realize either is when we got there, they took our phones away. They took our wallets. You couldn't contact your family. You had to be in this bubble. And it felt like, you know, Big Brother, like, oh my gosh, like, you know, everything that you did was always under their, you know, their supervision. You felt like kids, you know what I mean? But I understand it. They kept you in a bubble so you could focus on the task at hand. But it was hard. It was hard, you know, at like 24, not being able to contact, you know, your family. And, you know, I made it obviously all the way to the end. That was 3 months. Wow. 3 months. I had no contact with my family. And spoiler alert, we went to another country. They took us on a destination to Japan. And, you know, we're going to Japan. We left the next day. But it's like, can I call my family? No. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So it was kind of crazy in that sense. I mean, going to a different destination, a country I've never been to, you know, with this show was just like a whole nother level of craziness, you know? I look back on it and it seems like a blur, but you know, when I watch it back, it's definitely obviously cut up, but when I watch it, it's like I'm reliving that again. And I can still get those feelings of like, oh my gosh, you know, but I did the entire time try to be positive, my happy self. And one of the things that I loved about the show, even before I was on and after, you know, everybody helped each other. You know, this was not like a cutthroat show. This isn't like the Jersey Shore or Project Runway or anything like that. But, you know, I mean, we were all creatively, you know, helping each other. And, you know, we had to go home and live with the, you know, with your fellow contestants too. So that made it a little awkward, you know, when you just want your space. You know, you already worked with this person all day. You got to, you know, go home and, you know, be in the same room with them in the same house, you know. So it was kind of tough, you know. You sometimes you need your personal space, but it's like not face off, you know. So
but now let me ask you a question. So because, you know, reality television is unlike any other kind of television that there is, right?
I wouldn't recommend it for anybody. No, you know, I had a good experience, but
no, and certainly like reality, because, you know, there is a script that you're following to some extent, right? So you're talking about time, and, you know, yes, they, you know, like on the show, I'm sure, you know, just like with everything, you know, like you said, the editing process, you know, it makes it look really, really fast. But I mean, things took time. So talking about time management, how did you manage your time given the deadlines that they were giving you for the show?
Right. So just so you guys know, when they say you have 3 days, it's not 3 days. It's 17 hours total that they split up into 3 days. And that's insane. That's insane. So when we're introduced to the challenge, you know, again, it could be a skill. I don't know. I just have reference. I'm like, my head's like a Rolodex. I can pull something out very quickly. Not a lot of people do that. And I didn't realize that. I thought, you know, and again, I realized that might have been a little bit of a skill there, but I've always had kind of like a, like a Rolodex of characters I wanted to do, things I wanted to try. When I walk into that lab, it's like, okay, I can use this, I can use this, I can use this. I see what's there. When we're given that challenge and I have the opportunity to go through what can I use to get me to that point even before we go back, that's how my process starts. I start building up here as soon as the challenge is announced. So when I get to that lab, I know where to go immediately. That was what helped me tremendously. Preparing with what I have to go forward. Just like when I mentioned I was a kid, I had access to very limited things, but I knew I had tape all the time or tinfoil. So I applied those skills that I had as a child, that concept of building whatever I had in front of me on that show. And it's weird to think about it now like that. But when we were given a challenge, I'll give you an example. The Dragon Challenge on season 6.
Okay.
I wanted Frozen because in the back of my head, I wanted to use that cool vacuum former. And I had an idea on making those icicles. That was my inspiration. And I had to get it. And I got it. And the first thing that I did was make those icicles because I thought in my head, I wanted to try that cool machine only for the purposes of doing that design element on that character. And that's how my brain works. I get fixated on a specific element that helped drive and inspired me to do it. So there really never was a makeup on that show that I wasn't excited about because I found something about it that got me excited, whether it was an element or a color or something. So, and that's how I kept myself motivated and moving throughout each challenge.
Gotcha. So now let me ask too, in regards to that, you had what was 3 days, but really 17 hours. Was there much room for experimentation as you would go, or like were there people, maybe even yourself, that would try something and then the clock is ticking and they're like, "Oh crap! Now this really has gone the wrong way." And what do you do in that situation under that?
Right. And that had happened to me because there was a couple. Simply enough, there were certain materials that I was used to that I didn't have there. They would have substitutes, or I don't know, like the no name brand version of it. So I had to see, like, does this work? Does this mix the same? So yeah, there was times I'm like, oh crap, that doesn't work how I'm used to it. So, but no, I mean, you had no time. If you experimented, that was it. That was what you were doing. And with that dragon, I didn't know how to make wings. I just saw things that, okay, I put it together and it worked, but that was honestly pure luck. It wasn't like I had a perfect blueprint to go off of. So yeah, I mean, you had no time to experiment. And if you experimented, that made or break the moment on, your character. So there really wasn't no time to do something over twice, so.
Got you. Now, let me ask you a question. This is coming from the Facebook watch party. Someone wants to know, with the characters that you guys created for Face Off, was there some kind of release, or did those become property? And I guess maybe that's why you said SYFY.
So it's theirs, and it sucked, to kind of, but I mean, we have access to the full downloadable images that they sent us and things like that. But, we can sell our prints and do whatever we want. But, I'm not going to go ahead and go make all of my characters or whatever, because I would do it differently. Don't forget, these are all things that were done in a time crunch situation. I am proud of many of the characters that I did. But to answer that specific question, it is that they own those. They own those now. Even the molds were broken up after the challenge. We had no access to those things. So I don't know, maybe I grabbed a few things here and there, but the show's over. You can't come get me now. No, but I grabbed a couple little memorabilia things here and there, but no, it really, it's all part of it. We knew what we were signing up for, and unfortunately, yeah, they do own those characters, but it's still our artwork, so.
Yeah. Now, I mean, and that token, just to build on that, for you or anybody else on the show, did you guys has anybody seen any of those characters show up anywhere else, or they kind of just went with the show and disappeared? When the show,
As far as people like reproducing them, or
well, like did they show up in any future sci-fi
no,
properties?
not that I know of. I'm not 100% sure, but you know, the hardest thing was coming up with something original. That was the hardest thing, you know. And they say that, you know, when you design, you can't come up with something that has been out there, and it's like, okay, it's hard when you come up with something on the spot. But no, I personally have not seen anything come of the show, other than like people like myself who teach and want to recreate your character. Like, that's okay, I guess.
Yeah.
But no, I haven't seen something that I specifically designed end up on a movie. You know what I mean? Without me knowing or whatever. But I don't know. I'm not 100% sure on that. So.
And you actually did bring up a good topic there, because, and I think this is something that a lot of artists struggle with, whether it is makeup, whether it is, we have Leslie here who does stuff puppetry wise and also art wise, and there's some other artists that are watching us. How do you, as an artist, how do you feel is the best way to bring your own quality into a project? Like if they're saying, we'll use like a Freddy Krueger for instance.
Right.
Well, we want to do like this. We want to do this guy with like a melted face, and how do you approach that? Because clearly you're like, oh, Freddy's in my head, and how do you bring that originality to it, where you're not doing Freddy essentially?
Right. That's interesting. It's a tricky thing to answer, because when I design, I kind of pull from, I kind of have categories in my head. Is it a hybrid? Is it a half animal? Or whatever. And I try to put in a little bit of personality into it. Yeah. Give it an expression. Give it a what's its backstory? That kind of helps you, answer get those questions. Even my students are like, I don't know what to do. Well, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to do an alien? Yes, I want to do an alien. Okay, what planet does it come from? Oh, we're getting that serious? I said, yeah. Let's take it. It's on Mars. It's a dry planet, so its skin would, work like this or like this. Or is it an ocean planet? So it's something a little aquatic. So that's the good starting point, is starting from the backstory of whatever you're creating. Mm-hmm. And this is basic like character design, and that's kind of my wheelhouse. But it all kind of starts with, where does this thing come from? If a director comes to you, okay, I want you to design a creature based on this. I read through the script, okay, it's from this, I got it. And I present him with some sketches, or, try to do a couple variations, but also at the most important part, put your flair in there. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to originality, I mean, it's hard. It's hard because sometimes you're full of references. I mean, we've seen hundreds of different variations of clowns in cinema. Mm-hmm. With the newest one being It versus the old It, or Twisty from American Horror Story. But did you notice there's a couple little changes? Like Twisty the clown, you pull his mask off, he has no mouth. So that's cool. It, with Tim Curry, I mean, that's such a basic, character. But again, take that versus the new It, completely different. Original, it is when you think about it. But sometimes originality can be so simplistic. It could be the simplest thing of just a specific shape, a color. But what I like to do is try to put personality. I feel like I have a little bit of personality too. You know what I mean? So I'm very bubbly, and I have a lot of emotion, and I like to put that in my characters. It brings that lively quality to my characters, and that's what I do personally. Mm-hmm. But a lot of other artists that I've seen, this stuff comes out of their head. It's amazing, but definitely there's nothing wrong with referencing or picking nuances or narratives that you like about other characters. Mm-hmm. You just, in this world, you just can't like take something and go like this and cut and paste. You want to kind of branch out and figure out what's the backstory first. That's where I think people should start when they're coming up with a design. Where does this thing come from? How does it work? What does it do? What's its function? And I think from there, you can start really building on something unique and special.
Yeah.
So
And to build on that, I'm just gonna throw what Leslie wrote up here. Like she said, you were really great at storytelling, and I think in character design. And again, I've done a lot of comic things. You guys do the makeup thing. Leslie does the puppetry. I mean, it really does come back to that story. Where is this character from? What drives this character? Like what are they aspiring to do? Like, if you're a Disney fan, like in the beginning of every Disney movie, they refer to that as the "I Want" song, right? Because the princess is singing that first song is like what it is that they want, what's driving them, and then that motivates who they are. Because certainly, like you're saying, characters with planets, you're not gonna draw a character from an aquatic planet with dry skin. That's
exactly.
it's not possible.
Exactly.
So yes, I think I agree. Story is definitely the best way to go. So now
because that helps you inspire the task at hand of designing something original, and you can write it out on a piece of paper, like have those categories. What do you want to call this thing? And you can just go through it, like a character descriptive spreadsheet, you know what I mean? A character log or something, and it kind of helps you figure that out. If you have to write, if you want to do something new, it's like, hey, backstory, where is it from? What is its purpose? And it's like, once you have all this, that you're building this character like profile, then you can go off and designing it. And I think there's your checklist. So you don't have any unanswered questions, and if you could think about it, oh, that's kind of like that movie, or it's kind of like that character I've seen, then you can change it. And that's kind of how I've approached original characters that way, because I don't want to get into a situation where I'm stepping over somebody else's design or backstory, but originality nowadays is a little difficult. Hollywood likes to revamp things again and again, but we all know how that is. But it's all about what new things can we resonate in the younger people, younger generation who are going to be fans, you know what I mean? So I get that as well, but
and that's a perfect segue into the next part. I'm talking about the younger fan and what you've done for the younger fans, which is what I have here, the Monster Kidz Box.
I got mine too.
You got one behind you too. I like the orange one that's back there too.
Yeah, that's for the mummy design. That's the mummy that I have.
Gotcha. So yeah, the Monster Kidz Box, and tell us a little bit about the Monster Kidz Box. And just for everybody watching, if you want a Monster Kidz Box, it makes a great holiday gift. And I'm going to say this a billion times. So go to Monster. Oh my gosh! And you know what I just noticed? I wrote the wrong website. I'm going to have to fix that while we're doing this. Monster Kids with a Z Box. How did I mess that up?
Monster Kidz Box with a Z.com.
Oh my goodness. There it is. MonsterKidsBox.com. Right. So yeah, no, go and order that. It's a great item. I did it with my son. I'll show you my son's in a little bit. I know you've seen it already, and Leslie has seen it.
It's amazing.
But tell us a little bit about the Monster Kidz Box and what it is and how it originated.
Well, for me, this year has been difficult like everybody else. And, I was very close to closing my doors here at my studio in the beginning of the year because, I couldn't have my students. Projects that I was under, the works with directors and things just stopped. So for those 4 months where I had to, shut down here in Connecticut, I had to think of something. And the Monster Box was an idea that I had years ago. And it kind of stemmed from parents coming up to me during conventions when I would go touring, with for Face Off. And they would come up to me and they're like, my kids want to do this. They're like 7 years old, younger. They want to get into makeup. How do they start? And I look at them and I'm like, I know the answer. I felt so difficult to tell them at the time, but there really isn't anything, because some of the materials that I use are kind of dangerous for a kid of their age to do unless they're with somebody, because they don't understand the concept of mixing plasters or working with latex or alcohol activated paint. I mean, these are all things that skilled people need to go to school for and learn and get certified for. So there really wasn't anything at the time, and that stuck back here with me. And as a kid, I wish I had a kit like this. I wish I did. And that was the promise. You know, this product is a promise to my 10-year-old self, because I wish I had this as a kid. And it all exploded from there. So it was about March, I developed, you know, kind of the first box, and came up with the idea. The zombie was the first one. So I thought in my head, let's create something where the materials are safe for kids. They can follow a step by step with a video instruction by me. And they're going to be using materials that they might already know, but the end result goes from here to here. And it's pretty incredible. And just the reward for me is seeing the work that these kids have been doing. Again, your son is 7. I've seen kids who do it that are 4 years old. It's actually amazing, you know. It's amazing. It blows my mind, because, you know, the one up here is the one I did. And when you put them together, that's one that I would consider that's professionally done by me. But wow, you can't really tell the difference between the kid who, the 7-year-old, and me, you know. And I think that, to me, was such the success of this, because it truly gives kids an opportunity to at least dabble in this field in a safe way, you know. And eventually maybe they'll want to get into the field more, and they can come take my classes. But in the meantime, this is really a really fun kit where you can build a monster at, you know, your own convenience, your own time, and be proud of it, because you would be surprised at what you might be able to do, you know. So it's really cool, and it's blown up since then. I launched it in June, and, you know, I think I'm nearing about 350 boxes sold now. So it's blowing up even now. So for me, it was great. It kind of saved my studio. So it's been in a lot of newspapers, you know, wonderful things like this. So I'm trying to get it out there. It's gone to different countries already, you know, and you get a video, you get me showing you how to do it, you know. So thanks to my brother, my boyfriend, for putting that out there, helping me with all the equipment and getting everything up live and everything. So we're still going. You know, I have even miniature versions in the works, and I'll show you guys right now. So we have a little voodoo doll here.
Oh, here, let me give you the screen so you can even get closer with it.
Can you guys see that? So this little guy is going to be available soon. This is going to be part of the mini monster box I'm going to have coming out, hopefully for Christmas. That's the goal, you know. And this will be a series of different activities, so you can build, you know, a smaller zombie head, or a bat, or a voodoo doll, and you're creating everything. You're creating the structure. You're painting everything. So I'm expanding more than just masks, and keeping under this monster brand that I love so much. And it's just going like crazy. And I'm just trying to introduce new designs and new characters. So it's really, really fun. And I'm so excited to see where this goes, you know?
I mean, and certainly, and I mean, well, I want to talk about that little voodoo doll, but the materials that you made, like, I mean, honestly, like my son pulled this out of the box, and, you know, I mean, it was just a white plastic mask, and, you know, the cool snap-on strap, you know, like, this is a white mask, and all the materials for the most part, I mean, I guess the eyes are just like these plastic eyelids, right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, everything else that was on this, I mean, was it like zombie glue? Like, you had, everything was labeled, but I mean, it was really Elmer's glue, and just like all like tissue paper. So a lot of stuff that kids, like, I mean, if you're step by step with what you're doing there, but I mean, there's nothing stopping a kid to take their own, and I'm sure they take their own creative license to be like, you know, I want some more flesh, so go get some more napkins.
And that's what I love, because it opens up a whole new category. And even with the new mini monster boxes, you know, they'll be able to even have more freedom with that as well. But I always kind of like to start like, this is what it could look like, but it's really up to you what you want the end result to be. You can put a little bit more blood on it if it's a zombie. You know, I have a couple other designs as well, like a mummy, and the doll. The doll for me is the creepiest one. I am not a fan of dolls at all. So I had to come out with that, because for me it was just terrifying. But the simple porcelain doll one was just like, And seeing kids put that on, it's terrifying. They look like little dolls, and it's really funny and creepy to me, So again, it makes me laugh, and it makes me so excited and humble to see that something that I created is really getting the attention with the younger kids. And I can't wait to see where this goes, and I am gonna just keep moving forward.
Now, going back to the mini dolls that you're doing. Like, what is the material of that mini doll made out of?
So underneath here is a form that it's like a plastic form that they can paint, and there is actually a series of hidden holes in here that you can actually poke the doll if you want.
Oh wow!
It's pretty cool. And then you do the own wrapping yourself. You paint and stain it to make it look like it's been worn. And then you get to add details like the buttons, some staining here. It makes it look this looks very authentic too. And I think I like that as well. And also one of the things I love to include is facts. In each Monster Kidz box, you'll see, even the mini monster boxes, you'll see that they include an informational card in it. And I like to do that because it kind of brings a little bit of education in as well. And this is what was really resonating with a lot of the schools that I presented this to, and they've been using it in their after school programs. It's just really cool little facts and things about masks in general, about mummies,
It's the interesting thing about it.
And that specifically for the zombie, and I talk about the Day of the Dead and where that originated from. The mummy talks about literally Egyptian mummies, how the wrappings were done. So I try to throw in like little facts here and there. Because I love doing some of those really cool kits. I think there were Scholastic kits even as a kid, and I love the idea you get more in it. I throw in some stickers and things like that. I was such a big fan of like the Goosebumps kits, the Goosebumps books, and they always had these little extra special boxes. Now everyone's doing boxes, which is cool, but I've always liked the idea of getting something and learning about it. So I try to incorporate that into this product as well.
Well, and again, we were talking about my son, and that's the thing is like kids live so much on the internet now. I mean, God knows, being home during this whole pandemic, they're all on the internet a lot, but they're looking at things like on YouTube and I mean even like on TikTok, and they're creating content. So something like this, like, I mean, certainly they get to see the behind the scenes of how this is made. And I mean, compliments to you by all means. That video, for anybody who wants to buy this, and I'm gonna throw the link up there again, the right link this time. But no, you give such great and clear directions for the video. I mean, the video, probably the runtime's about 20 minutes, and like I shared with you, we did it in about 2 days. But still, and certainly you could probably bang it out in a quicker time, with your family. But like you're very clear, step by step. The instructions are just wonderful, and I did it with a 7-year-old, and like you said, you've done it with kids that are 4. So you take them step by step. You're showing them the behind the scenes of it. And so yes, they see these creepy images like Walking Dead or whatever, and now they're seeing how it's created. It really isn't. Maybe it's creepy, but it's not really that creepy. And then the kids who are inclined that way with the TikTok videos or the YouTube videos, they can take these masks and whatever creations they make and create content with it, which is amazing.
I hope they do. I would love to see like little movies made from these as well. And again, like you mentioned, The Walking Dead, and that's the references I get from kids. Like, oh, I want to paint this like The Walking Dead. I'm like, that's great. And I wanted the whole purpose of this product was to give kids that launching pad. Like those parents told me at the conventions, like, where can my kid get started? And I wish I thought of this a while ago, but I think now's the perfect time. I mean, well, it's not really a perfect time in the world right now, but for a product like this, for people to bring families a little bit together, do a project with your son or your daughter, and being able to do something a little different and get some instruction for someone like myself who is familiar with how it's really done professionally, but still get a really interesting and really good quality result, And that was a challenge coming up with that too. Like, how do you make something at the end to be like, oh, this looks really good? And that was hard too. So picking characters and things like that, that obviously aren't licensed characters. You know, I could never do like a, you know, like a Star Wars character and like that. I'm not allowed to, but you know, being able to do something where it's like you can add a little bit more blood here and that wouldn't really matter and change anything. And that's why I did some of the characters that I did and the designs that I did. So
Yeah. Now, these dolls, when are they supposed to be available for purchase? Would you roughly say?
So the goal, the goal is hopefully by Christmas. The shipping times for a lot of the like the boxes, the packaging is just crazy. So at the very least, it'll be up as a pre-order. Heaven forbid, there's crazy. You know, we don't know what it's going to be. So a lot of the shipping things and lead times just all over the place. But at the very least, they'll be up. You know, as a pre-order, as early as Cyber Monday. That's my goal. So hold me to it. You know,
that's in a week. That's in a week.
The goal was to get them hopefully shipped out. You know, that first to second week of December in time for Christmas. That's the goal. But things could change. You know, with shipping lead times and things like that. And you know, I just don't want to make any promises. But that's a goal of mine, is to hopefully at least get the miniature, especially the voodoo doll, out for the Christmas season, you know.
So I have a question over here on my on one of my other live streams for this. People are asking that guy in the back. Tell us about him.
Which one? Which one?
To your
big guy?
There's a big guy. Yes, the big guy. Tell us about him.
Yeah.
I got some.
So he's called the Oracle. He was this original character that I developed with my good friend Ebony Amber. And for those of you who follow a lot of my social media, Leslie is very familiar with her. She is not only my best friend, but she is an amazing, an award-winning costume designer. And she created this with her mom, like everything. The whole costume was hand done. The prosthetic was done by me. We had people work on the hair. I mean, this was such an amazing character. It was in an independent film that didn't really go anywhere, but again, he is a character, again, that came out of, you know, our heads, and we just brought it to life. And we took him to several conventions all over the U.S. since 2015 when he was created. And it was just, you know, and it was a showcase that we did to talk about character design and costume design, how important those two mesh together. And the character stands about 7 feet tall, and the performer inside, you know, he walks on stilts, and it's this goat character, mystical kind of old, you know, oracle character that, you know, tells the future and things like that. So it was such a really cool design, and I keep him here in my studio for people to see when they come in. And this is a character that I'm very proud of. It's extremely detailed up close. Everything is either handmade or upcycled.
Wow.
And it's really cool. But a lot of people, oh, he reminds me of something. But, you know, he hasn't been in a big film yet, you know. But again, it was just a character that I wanted to do with Ebony and a few other people who we did it with. But he's just now kind of a permanent, you know, exhibit character here in my studio, and really is just a beautiful character to look at when I walk in my studio, because I'm very proud of it. So
I'm just gonna Leslie, shout out to Ebony. She is awesome, and I love her. Leslie writes,
"We love you too, Leslie."
So let me just go back to this. So you said they were upscaled, and what is it, latex and stuff, like the skin for him?
Yeah, so this is an actual it's a prosthetic. So that was actually worn by my brother Alec, and we just saved the prosthetic. So that face is specifically fit to his anatomy only. The costume was made based on him. A lot of the elements on here, like I said, upcycled, were like his shoes, his belt were made out of like an old couch that Ebony did. It just blows your mind when you look at this. Wow. It's every time he turns, it's something new on here. I don't even know how many hours we spent on this consecutively, but it's really, for me, one of the most original and time-consuming characters that I have ever done. You know, I don't know if anything will ever come as close to this unless I have to read something different like this. But I love this character. Love it.
Now, let me ask a question in regards to the materials for the prosthetic. What is, because I know like a lot of materials used for production, like there is a shelf life and a way to preserve it. What's the shelf life for like his prosthetics, and how do you preserve something like that?
Right. So even with latex masks, latex is a natural material, so it will break down over time. There's really not much you can do. Like if you ever had like an old Halloween mask, like 10 years old, it could start breaking down. And that's that sucks, you know. This is foam latex. So it's similar to like a latex sponge or like a makeup edge, you know.
So honestly, I like a Muppet.
Exactly. and you, the only way I guess you could preserve it is keeping it contained in like a you know, like a display case with, you know. But I mean, I just didn't have that here. But
because it turns to like that what they call toast, right? It gets like that powdery.
Yeah, it just it disintegrates, you know. So there's not really much you can do with that. And I've seen a lot of restorative artworks that are been restored. I'm not sure the terminology there. Even walking through the Jim Henson's exhibit in New York City, I mean, they preserved a lot of their latex materials by going in and touching it up. But you have to. I mean, at that time, you didn't know that, you know, this is going to be the biggest thing in the world. We got to preserve it for, you know, 70 years. You know, you're using materials that you used back then. You don't know if they're going to last. There's a lot of materials now that will last forever. You know, there's silicones, but silicone is expensive. It's heavy, but it doesn't break down really. It doesn't. It's just a little bit harder and more challenging to work with, you know, in my world, you know. But as a prop, silicone is like it can last forever, you know, pretty much. But latex being a natural material, I mean, you can seal it with a sealer, but it may not last. So, I mean, I don't know, 20 years from now, I have no idea what this thing will do. But again, I've immortalized him in print and in posters, and I have all the pictures and videos saved. So, I mean, that's kind of the reality. So he's retired right now behind me until I don't have the studio anymore. So.
Yeah. And let me ask a question too, in regards to the prosthetics. How often or how many times after use do you have to replace it? Like, so if you're filming something over a period of time,
right?
I assume with the spirit gum and all the other makeup and applications, that must also create some wear and tear on the prosthetic, right?
Right. And I'll give you an example. A majority of, like, I'll give you an example. One of my really good friends, I was on the show with the first time, his name is Daniel, and he worked on the Hobbit film. And I think he worked on it for 30 days straight. He told us about it. And he was responsible for one of the dwarves. So he had to apply a nose every day, a new one every single day. Gotcha. Once you remove it, like this, you can't really apply it again because the removers, you know, the sweat from the actor just ruins the prosthetic. So you got to have a new one every day. And that's nuts. You know, wigs and things can be clean, but when it comes to the prosthetics, most likely it's a one-time use and that's it. You got to remake, you know, you have sets of them ready to go. But boy, does that get time-consuming and expensive.
I can imagine.
You know? But if you're on a movie for 30 days, you got to know in your head, you got to have, you know, these noses or whatever you have ready to go. And that's kind of the little hidden secret, you know, behind the scenes there, because you really can't reuse some of these things. You might be able to get away with it if it's like a cowl, like a whole head. You just take it off here and it's sealed here. You might get away with it. I've seen that done before where they'll reuse pieces. But really, when you're working with the face, like your sweat, the removers, they just break down, you know? So that's one thing I've noticed is like sometimes these things only last once and that's it. You know, it's expensive. It can get expensive. So.
Yeah, you know, financially and time-wise, absolutely.
Exactly.
So, wow, you know, it is almost 9:30. So, no, see, time flies. And I just want to say that another wonderful comment from Leslie. You are the best, and I love that you start with your heart always. I just wanted to make sure we got that up there too. And Leslie, your heart is huge, and Tyler and I definitely vouch for that.
Yes.
So, but yes, I mean, let me put this back up here again, so for people to know. And like you said, the other things will be available. The voodoo doll kits that will be on the Monster Kidz Box website as well.
We'll be making announcements on the Monster Box Instagram page, which is just the at the Monster Kidz Box, as well as my website there too. So yeah.
Gotcha. And if someone is interested, I mean, obviously to order the Kids Box, this is the place to do it. If somebody's interested in doing a class with you or having you come to their school, what's the best way to get a hold of you that way?
Right. I mean, you can definitely check out my website at tylergreenfx.com. And, I have some exciting news. As of January 2021, I'm going to be doing virtual live courses. And that's what I'm really excited about. So my new studio here is set up for that. I have a amazing setup. I have equipment ready to go. It's just trying to figure out that platform that we're going to be doing it with. And with the enrollment, you have an opportunity to be either a viewer or a participant. And that if you're a participant, you will actually be able to get, with the purchase of the class, a kit that I will be using as well throughout the class. So that's awesome. Going to be live interactive classes with me, and that's how I'm going to start off 2021 with that. So it's going to be new learning curve for me, but I have had so many people reach out to me overseas, people who can't come to my classes physically. So this is their opportunity to be able to take a class with me in a live setting like this, where I get to show them, they can try it then or on their own. As well. So it's something new I'm trying, and with the pandemic going on, I think the time is now. So
yeah. And is there an age limit for something like that, or
no? I mean, hey, if your 7-year-old wants to get on and try it, really, it's fun. I mean, really, so half of it is you can just watch, or you can actually get the kit and participate, or save it till after the class is over. But really, it's for me to show you. I'm going to walk you through it, just like the tutorial videos that I did for the boxes, just more specifically designed for effects. And some of the courses include airbrushing 101. So you have an opportunity to learn how to use an airbrush, take it apart, put it back together. You can also get into wounds and blood and all of that. And nice. Prosthetic application, learn how to apply a prosthetic. Those are going to be my 3 starting courses that I'm going to be doing, and I'm excited to see how they go. So that's my goal. So a lot of things happening.
No, listen, that all sounds awesome. I mean, I'm definitely going to check it out. So
cool.
No, I'll definitely check it out. Yeah. So again, everybody, great Christmas gift. Get the Monster Kidz Box, and watch for the voodoo doll coming. Hopefully, next 2 weeks. Right, the 30th, right? But it'll be out. Yeah, it'll be out. You'll get it at some point, absolutely. But yeah, no, get the monster kit. I mean, again, you see Tyler behind him. I mean, like don't you want your kid wearing this in your house
in the middle of the night? No.
There you go. My son says jump scare.
Yeah.
Or the little porcelain doll. If you have some little kids, there you go.
But please tell your son he did an amazing job with that. So it's so cool to get all done.
I did tell him tonight that I was talking to you, so I said, "Oh, I'm going to talk to Tyler."
Yeah, he did a good job.
Yeah. So again, Tyler, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and
thank you.
This was a lot of fun, and it's great learning about this kind of stuff too. And for everybody else, tune in. And Tyler, just hold on, I'll keep you backstage for a minute. Yeah. So for everybody tuning in, thank you for coming and joining us on IncrediChat. We will not have a show next Thursday because it's Thanksgiving. So I think I'll throw a best of everybody. So, some clips of some other things that we've done. So again, thank you all for tuning in. Tyler, once again,
thank you guys.
And we will see you next time on IncrediChat.